From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here on this Monday. It is the 10th day in the month of April. I apologize if you heard that big inhale. I thought the mic was off. As we get set to go with our new format today, just going straight through to the end of the show, minimum half hour. A lot to discuss that we didn't get to that came up this weekend that we didn't get to last week, with again just another busy week of school coming back from spring break. It's midterms and papers, and it's been a mess. But we'll start off with UFC 110, 210, and if that took place in Buffalo. Controversy surrounding the co-main event, which was Weidman versus Musasi, and it's a situation to where if you know the New York State Athletic Commission, then this isn't a controversy. But if you don't know the New York State Athletics Commission, then it is controversial. And what I mean by that is I want to make sure that we all are on the same page when it comes to what I'm about to say. When it comes to the safety and well-being of a fighter in New York, now they haven't allowed boxing. They haven't allowed fighting in New York in a very long time. Now, the reason for that was the death of a fighter. Let me see. Hold on. One. Who do I talk about? There was I forget the names escape me, but there was a death, and I want to say the 50s or the 60s. Oh, it was Benny Paret. The Benny Paret fight against Emil Griffith, where Paret hit into the corner. He's getting pounded on by Griffith. He's knocked out. Fight should have been called. It wasn't. Griffith keeps pounding on him before the ref finally does stop it, and Paret dies a couple days later. Since then, New York has frowned upon fighting in general as a professional sport in the state. And we all know this. This is up until last year when they finally allowed the UFC into New York with, I believe it was 200 at Madison Square Garden. First ever UFC event held in New York. A caveat to that is that if it comes to the health and safety of a fighter, the Athletics Commission has the final say no matter what the rule is. That now that is out there, now that we know that, let's get to what happened on Saturday night. Why it's about halfway through the second round. Musasi has Weidman around. He has his arms wrapped under Weidman's arms around his torso. If you watch wrestling, he's got him in kind of like a pedigree position, but instead of holding his arms back, he's got him around the chest. So Weidman is bent over forward. Musasi gets a knee to the side of the head, another knee to the side of the head. The official stops the fight because he thought it was an illegal knee. The UFC ruling on an illegal knee is that the guy who got kneed gets 5 minutes to recover, a medical evaluation, to see if he can continue. The fighter who delivered the knee gets a penalty, and then they go on if the guy can continue. That's not what happened on Saturday night. What happened on Saturday night was the controversy with his hands. The rule in UFC used to be that if somebody is in a 3-point stance and a knee is delivered to the head, it is an illegal knee. Now, after this year, the rule is that they have to have both hands and both feet on the ground. So they have both hands and both feet off on the ground, and a knee is delivered. It's an illegal knee. So Weidman is in a 3-point stance, gets kneed in the head, puts his other hand down, and then as Mousasi delivers the second knee, he picks Weidman up so his hand comes up and off, and then knees him in the head again. That's when the ref stops the fight. Weidman realizes what's happened, sits down on his rear end and starts holding the side of his head. That exchange was not stopped, as many people want to believe. That exchange was not stopped by Weidman. That was stopped by the official. Weidman realized what happened, and then he said, okay, I'm going to play this now. To anyone saying that Weidman should man up, should have just manned up and fought, I want to see you take a knee to the temple from a UFC fighter. Let me see if you're going to man up and walk it off and fight. So now, you're about 2 minutes into that 5-minute window when the official gets word that the second knee was legal. Okay? At that point, what should have happened was that everyone who doesn't belong in the octagon leaves and the fight resumes. That's what should have happened. What did happen, however, was an athletics commission doctor went into the octagon. This is after it was ruled a legal knee. An athletics commissioner doctor went into the octagon, performed a concussion protocol test, and pretty much immediately said he's not able to compete. The controversy here is that after it was ruled a legal knee, the doctor never should have went in. But because this is New York and because this is the New York State Athletics Commission, they get the final ruling. Doesn't matter what the rule in the sport is. If they feel as though they need to check that guy, they're going to check him. Now, they're obviously not going to stop the flow of the fight, but if the fight's already stopped, they're going to check him if they think they need to check him. And that's exactly what they did. They called the fight off because the doctor said he wasn't good, he wasn't fit. My assumption would be is that he failed the concussion test. Mousasi's not happy. He gets the win by TKO, but he's not happy how the fight ended. Weidman is from Mineola, so he's technically a hometown fighter in Buffalo. He's not happy because he said you hear him say, I'm good. I'm good to go. Let's go. Let's start it back up. And he said, no, you're not. Fight's over. So he's not happy. Nobody's happy. The crowd's booing like crazy. And you hear all that you hear the commentators that say is it was ruled a legal knee. They should not have been in there. UFC and their people are not used to dealing with the New York State Athletics Commission. That was not the UFC's decision to end that fight. That was the commission's rule. And the only way UFC was allowed in New York is if in that spot the commission has the final say. And they flexed that right there. If you know how the commission works, that's just the New York State Athletics Commission doing what it does. But if you're a UFC fan, or if you're a part of the UFC, you've never fought in New York before, you've only seen one other fight in New York, you don't know what's going on. Now the question becomes, do you want to fight in New York? Because if you do, this is what's going to happen. When there is a medical decision like what took place Saturday night, the Athletics Commission rules. The Athletics Commission, their word is God. Because if it's not, there's no UFC in New York. Period. That's the only way that they're in New York, is if that is met. If the UFC took control, yeah, the fight would have resumed. They would have fought to a conclusion. Weidman may have won. Weidman may have lost. This sets up a rematch, unfinished business, so they got a promotion there. It is what happens. And like I said, Weidman's from Mineola. He should know the way the New York State Athletics Commission is. He's from New York. I don't really know much about them, but I know that they are very much against fighting, and that was the only way that it was getting to New York, is if they had rule on the fighters' health and safety. If it was left to the UFC, it would not be in New York. Period. So again, it's a controversy if you do not know the Athletics Commission. If you know the Athletics Commission, it's not an issue. Now you get to the NBA and the NHL. The NHL ended their season last night, which, if you're an Islander fan, the season really ended on Saturday, because you're asking for the Penguins to do one thing for you, and they can't beat Toronto. And it's especially worse that Toronto lost last night as just a little bit of an extra kick in the gut. So now you're out by 1 point. So the way the season ends, you have the Islanders finish a point out of the second wildcard spot. Toronto's in. The Rangers play Montreal. The Senators play the Bruins. The Caps play the Maple Leafs. Pittsburgh gets Columbus in the East. Chicago, Nashville. Minnesota, St. Louis. Anaheim, Calgary. Edmonton, San Jose in the West. The Rangers open up the playoffs on NBCSN on Wednesday. So Wednesday you have the Rangers, Montreal, Boston, Ottawa at 7. 7:30 is Columbus, Pittsburgh. 9:30 is St. Louis, Minnesota. 10 o'clock is San Jose, Edmonton. Now, Rangers, Montreal will be on NBCSN. Boston, Ottawa will be on the NHL Network. Columbus, Pittsburgh will be on USA. St. Louis, Minnesota will go on after Montreal, New York. And San Jose, Edmonton will go on after Columbus and Pittsburgh. So on those networks. Toronto plays Washington on Thursday on the USA Network at 7. Chicago, Nashville at 8 on the NBCSN. And Anaheim, Calgary will follow that game at 10:30. So, if you are a Ranger fan, of course this season ends exactly where you want it to end. It ends with your team in the playoffs. You were clear in the first wild card spot for really the last 3 months of the year. You have most of your players back. Lundqvist has been getting a little bit better. Ranta has been playing solidly in behind. You have the young players making contributions. The biggest look for the Rangers is going to be Michael Grabner. If Grabner can do what Grabner did over the course of the season, the Rangers will actually have a decent chance at beating Montreal. Now remember, the Rangers beat Montreal en route to the Stanley Cup final a couple years ago. That was after injuring Carey Price in the first game. So the Rangers do have history with Montreal and recent history with Montreal. If you're the Islanders, there's a couple things you can say about this season if you're the Islanders. A lot of controversy about the arena may have caused a distraction. The wondering where is John Tavares going to go next year, that may have caused a little bit of a distraction, no doubt about it. The conditions at the arena may not have been the best. You fight through it. Andrew Ladd really didn't get going until the midway point of the year. You were stone dead last and picked yourself up into a playoff spot in a month and a half. So you got that. You end the season on a 6-game winning streak. You had a goaltender controversy. And you had a lull in March that really killed your season. That losing streak in the end of March, where they ended up losing to Boston, where they lost to Columbus, that was the downer for the Islanders. That's what kept them out of the playoffs. If they could have beaten Boston, if they could have held on, if they could have beaten Boston, if they could have held on in one of those games down the stretch, they'd be in. So really, an 82-game season came down to one game. And for the Islanders, they came out on the wrong end of it. Congratulations to Toronto. I mean, with a young team like that, Freddie Anderson, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Morgan Riley, Austin Matthews, who scores 40 goals this year, becomes one of like 6 rookies under the age of 20 to score 40 goals in a rookie season. Out of the number one pick. Toronto went from the number one pick last year to a playoff spot the next. And when you get a number one pick, that's what's supposed to happen. Edmonton, look at Edmonton. How many number one picks did they have? Taylor Hall, Nugent Hopkins, Hemsky. He wasn't a number one, but he was supposed to be big. There were a couple. Nail Yakupov, he was supposed to be big. I believe. I think I may be. There's one guy on that team whose name is escaping me. That that I know had big expectations that he really hasn't filled. Taylor Hall's not with the team anymore. Nugent Hopkins isn't nearly what he was. Hasn't grown nearly to what they were expecting him to grow to. Then you go to last year's draft, or the draft 2 years ago, and you get Connor McDavid, who this year was just shy of 100 points in just his second year. Jordan Eberle. That was who I was thinking of. Not yet Nail Yakupov. Jordan Eberle. That's who I was thinking of. And you got the young goaltender in Cam Talbot. Draisaitl, who had 29 goals this year and 48 assists. Then you get to Connor McDavid, who did, in his second season, have 100 points. 30 goals, 70 assists. There's a reason why, coming out of the Canadian League, that this kid was nicknamed Connor McJesus. Because in just his second year, he had 100 points. Draisaitl had 77. Edmonton finally, out of all those first round picks, Edmonton finally has a good team. Toronto, with their first round pick, finally, with their number one overall pick, finally has a good team again. Now the Islanders have to fight to keep their number one pick in John Tavares, who I just saw it on NHL.com now, Tavares ready to talk extension with Islanders. Him going to Toronto really, to me, does not make sense because there are a lot of guys, and I just named them before, Marner, Nylander, Matthews, that are all going to need their big boy contracts before Tavares' contract is up, which means you're not going to be able to keep them all. So again, if you're the Rangers, great season. You didn't really have all your players together for most of it, but when you did, you were successful. Good season from a low paid player in Grabner. Work on the penalty kill. Other than that, you'll be fine. Maybe a second round exit for the Rangers. That would be my assumption. If you're the Islanders, you can hang your hat on the fact that you ended the season with a 6-game winning streak and that you pulled yourself from stone dead last in the East all the way to 1 point out of a playoff spot at the end of the year. If you're the Devils, hang your head on the fact that you have the second best chance at winning the NHL lottery. Because as a Devil fan, that's really all you have this year. So you're looking at the 1, 2, or 3 overall pick in the draft. Not as stacked as last year, but you got one of them. Now to the NBA. And this topic that I've been wanting to get to really since last week, and I really didn't find a place in last week's show to put it together or to where to fit it. And I haven't only 2 shows last week, but I kind of have to get to it now after what happened yesterday in Denver. Russell Westbrook has been the bane of my existence this year. Because every other night I'm getting alerts from the NBA. Russell Westbrook, 30th triple-double of the year, 31st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Till last night when he broke Oscar Robinson's record of 41 triple-doubles. He got his 42nd last night. He will average a triple-double for the season, which, with a couple games to go, he can extend that to 42, 43, maybe 44, if he has a couple good nights. Here is my biggest problem with the triple-double as a stat. And I've been getting this all season. LeBron gets his 14th. Harden gets his 20th. There have been more triple-doubles this year than any other year in the NBA prior. It is a fake stat. It is a made up stat. And the reason why I call it a made up stat is because there are none of the 5 positions that you look for that focus on all 3 of those stats. For guards, you're looking at shooting, just to pick out the 3. For guards, you're looking at points and assists. For forwards and centers, you're looking at points and rebounds. If you get the other ones, well, that's fine. That works. That works for us. There is no position where you focus on all of those stats. So why are those 3 stats grouped together? Because they're the most notable. They're the ones that you're always looking at. Because when I'm looking for a point guard, I'm looking for points, assists, and turnover percentage. I don't know about you guys. That's me. That's what I'm looking for in a traditional point guard. Now, I know there's really no such thing as a traditional point guard anymore. But when I'm looking for a point guard, those are the 3 things that I'm looking for. I am looking for I'm looking for shooting percentage, assists, and turnover ratio. That's what I'm looking for. Where in that did I say rebounds? Where in that did I say points per game? I didn't. So if you're looking for a point guard, you're really only looking for one of those 3 for the triple-double. That, and how many videos had we seen this year where he's pushing players out of the way to get rebounds? How many more shots has he taken than the next guy? Does it matter that he leads the NBA in turnovers? Does it matter that he's taken 30, 40 shots a game? I don't know if you can call it stat padding, but it's definitely taking over and running with it. Which, hey, sometimes it's good. Sometimes you want somebody to just take over and run. But to be glorifying the triple-double is an absolute joke. You want to know why it's a joke? Because the guy he passed for most triple-doubles in a season, Oscar Robertson, the year that he averaged a triple-double, he finished 3rd in the MVP voting. He finished 3rd. Why? Well, partially because he finished behind Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell. That's partially why. But what do guards have to do with rebounding? Why would you look at rebounding for guards? The rebounding stat holds absolutely 0 value to a guard. If a guard can rebound, well, hey, you just found a couple extra rebounds. It's not essential to the position, especially a point guard. Most nights he's getting more rebounds than assists. He got the 820 rebounds before he got the 820 assists. That's not a point guard. That's a small forward. That, and he was gifted a couple of rebounds a night. He stole a couple more. The triple-double is a nonsense stat. You don't look at those 3 to rate any player at their position. That, and again, Russell Wilson has taken how many more shots above the next guy? But yet, oh, he's got to be the MVP. Why does he have to be the MVP? Because he's the most popular player in the league this year? Because of what he's doing? If Oscar Robertson doesn't win the MVP award, and Robertson is a better player than Russell Westbrook would ever hope to be, If he doesn't win the MVP award averaging a triple-double, neither does Westbrook. I'm sorry, he doesn't. And if he does, it just goes to show that the MVP award really doesn't mean you're the most valuable player to the team. It becomes a popularity award. You get the MVP award because you were the most popular player this season. How else do you explain a unanimous vote for Kyrie Irving for Steph Curry last year? A unanimous vote for MVP. And I'm positive most people will tell you Curry was unanimously the most popular player in the league last year. Is the MVP award showing that a player is valuable to their team? Or is it showing who the most popular player in the league is that year? Because to be perfectly honest, I can't tell you anymore. I don't know anymore. It's supposed to show player value. But after a unanimous vote last year, and Russell Westbrook, who, let's be honest, he's had a fantastic year. He really has. But LeBron's got career highs in a lot of areas. Harden's had a fantastic year. I mean, you would say somebody averaging a triple double would be easy. But it's happened before. And that person didn't win the MVP. So why all of a sudden should this one? Why all of a sudden now do we have to change that? Because this guy got a triple double every other game? What's the point? This is why I can't stand the NBA. Everything is a popularity contest. Everything is individual performance. Everything is about the individual. It's never about the team. How is Durant going to impact the Warriors well when he's coming back? It's a nonsense stat to create something to talk about. Because again, who looks for rebounding in a guard? I sure don't. Like I said, if I get a guard that can rebound, hey, that's a bonus for me. It's not essential. And again, when he's stealing rebounds, and when he has more rebounds on a season than he does assists as a point guard, that doesn't it doesn't matter to me. The triple double does not matter. The fact that he's had a fantastic year, you know what? Happy for him. Great year. You wanted to show that you could be the man in Oklahoma City with Kevin Durant leaving? You did. I'll tell you that. You definitely did. But you did it by controlling games. And when I mean controlling games, I don't mean like LeBron, who's passing it off, everything goes through him. No, I mean everything was Westbrook. Everything was him. Not like LeBron, where everything goes through him. Everything was Westbrook. There's my NBA rant. There's another one. So now you get to baseball, where the Yankees have already played today, 8-1 the final against Tampa Bay. Pineda flirting with a perfect game. Did not allow a walk. Struck out 11 today. 2 hits, only 1 run allowed in the 8th. was a home run by Morrison over Tampa Bay. So, again, if you wanted a game out of the Yankees where they played good baseball, a good opening day, you got it. You definitely got it. And of course, you want to see this out of the Yankees more often. 3-4 record through the first 7 days. This is exactly what you want to see out of Michael Pineda. Again, the Yankees have already said that if you want, they've already told Tanaka, listen, if you walk, you're not coming back. If you deny the option, you're not coming back. We're not going to restructure a contract. It's either you take the option or you're gone. One of the two. So if I were told that, I would have just come out the next day saying, you know what, I'm opting out. I'm not getting bullied around like that. This will be my last year as a Yankee. If the Mets did that to me, I'd be saying, you know what, I'm gone. You're not going to give me an ultimatum. I will walk. I will pitch somewhere else. I will make sure it's in your division, and I will make sure that I play every single series against you guys. That would be my attitude towards that. So you'd have to expect Tanaka gone. Sabathia's not coming back next year. You don't have a 4 and a 5. So Pineda's going to be your ace next year. And when you see performances like this on opening day, on the home opener, when you see days like this, where he's throwing 7 2/3, 2 hits, flirting with a perfect game, 11 strikeouts, this gives you hope. Now the question is, can he be consistent? Because he has proven multiple times over the course of his career he has not been consistent. So again, it's an 8-1 Yankee win today on the home opener. The Mets go on the road for the first time this year. They play the Philadelphia Phillies in their home opener. That game starting at about 15-20 minutes. It'll be Jacob deGrom on the mound against Jared Eckhoff. DeGrom struck out 6 over 6 shutout innings in the second game of the year. Eckhoff 2 runs over 6 2/3 against the Reds on Wednesday. Mets coming in after winning last night. And again, this whole thing with Conforto in the lineup. Now, Conforto is not in the lineup tonight. I'll give you the lineup in a second. But Conforto is not in the lineup tonight. He hits a home run to the base of the Shea Bridge last night, and then the discussion after the game and during the game was, at least on the radio, was he should play tomorrow. No. Because who's he going to replace? Cespedes? I don't think so. Who's better, Granderson or Conforto? Granderson. Well, Bruce hasn't hit. Well, he's hitting 250 and he's got 2 home runs on the year, and plus 1 last night. So, yeah, he's not playing over Bruce either. So where does he go? He had 1 game, he hits 1 home run, and now all of a sudden the guy's going to be in the lineup. The thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is you have to take somebody out. And as I said over the offseason, when is the point where David Wright starts to become a detriment to the team? You're already seeing it. Wright's hurt. When is he coming back? Don't know. Has Flores hit in his 3 starts this year? No, not really. Reyes has 1 hit through 5 games. Those are your 2 third basemen. Not hitting. One is definitely better defensively than the other. and they both play in key positions in the lineup. So with Reyes not hitting, Flores not hitting, you don't want to play Flores over Reyes every day. But Reyes has to sit because he's not hitting. See your problem now? Like I said, there has to come a point where if you're a Met, you have to be saying, you got to tell them, right, listen, we know you're Mr. Loyalty, we know you're Mr. Met, but you're screwing us right now, man. We can't go out and get a third baseman because when you come back, you're going to expect to play. And if we get a third baseman who's going to start every day, we're not going to want to sit him down to put you in because he's a little bit better, he's a little younger. But then again, we kind of have to put you in because you've been the starting third baseman for 12 years. Where does it go from there? There's got to come a point where you tell Wright, listen, you're putting us in a tough spot. Because if we sit the guy who's not hitting, we have a defensive liability at third. And if we sit the defensive liability, then we have a guy that's not hitting. Guy who's got one hit over 5 games to start the year. His average is 0.43. I could do that. The Mets this year have to look for a third baseman. Right? You're done. I love you, but you're done. Because what you're doing right now, saying, I want to come back, I want to play, hold on, hold the phone, I'll be ready to go, eventually, has to stop. You have to say, you know what? We can't wait anymore. You're going to be able to play for a week or two before you get hurt again for another month and a half, 2 months, sometimes 3, maybe 3. And then we're stuck in this spot again. We've been stuck in this spot. We've been dealing with this for 2 years now, going on 3. We can't do it anymore. We love you. You mean a lot to the franchise, but if you want to mean even more to the franchise right now, you got to step aside and let us get a third baseman. Because one can't hit, the other can't field. It's a bad spot for the Mets to be in, and it's a spot that they're creating for themselves. All right, anyway, the lineups for tonight. For the Mets, you have Reyes, Cabrera, Cespedes, Bruce, Granderson, Walker, Duda, Darno, DeGrom. So those are your lineups tonight. For the Mets, for the Phillies, you have Cesar Hernandez, Howie Kendrick, Odubel Herrera, Maikel Franco, Michael Saunders, Cameron Rupp, Brock Stassi, Freddie Galvis, and Jared Eckhoff. Those are the lineups for the Mets and the Phillies tonight. A game that'll be starting in about 10 minutes. About 10 minutes time. So we're gonna roll the. We're gonna get out of the show today with the way we usually do, which is rounding up the scores. So you have the Rangers. Rangers who I believe beat Pittsburgh yesterday. Yes, they did. Beat Pittsburgh yesterday 3-2 in the season finale. They will play they'll play the Montreal Canadiens on Wednesday. The Brooklyn Nets have 2 games left. They will play they beat the Chicago Bulls last night, Saturday, 107-106. The Knicks have mercifully only have 1 game left. They lost the Raptors 110-97. They play the 76ers on Wednesday. The Nets play tonight in Boston against the Celtics. Again, the Yankees beating the Rays 8-1. Mets play the Phillies in about 10 minutes. Islanders beat the Senators 4-2. Anders Lee notches up goal number 34 for the season. Islanders end the season on a 6-game winning streak. Red Wings close out Joe Louis Arena with a win over the Devils 4-1. Again, the Devils, Devils fans, you guys have one of the top 3 picks to look forward to. That's really what it comes down to. Saturday, DC United defeats New York City FC 2-1. Yesterday, Orlando City defeats the New York Red Bulls 1-0. So those are your finals from yesterday. NASCAR yesterday at the newly repaved Texas Motor Speedway. Jimmy Johnson comes away with his first win of the year. Kyle Larson gets his fourth second place finish out of 6 or 7 races this year. Fortunately, he does have a win. Thank God, because I'd probably be going nuts right around now. Joey Logano finishes third in the Cup race yesterday. Formula One, the Chinese Grand Prix started in the wet, started in damp conditions, ended in the dry. Mercedes Lewis Hamilton comes home with the victory. Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel coming home in second. Max Verstappen on pit strategy goes from 16th and finishes third, right ahead of teammate Daniel Ricciardo. Vettel and Hamilton 1-2 in the points. They are 1-2 in the points. Formula One going to Bahrain next week. IndyCar ran the Grand Prix of Long Beach just yesterday. James Hinchcliffe comes away with the victory. Sebastian Bourdais, who won at St. Petersburg, finishes second. Joseph Newgarden finishes third. Sebastian Bourdais, the points leader for the Verizon IndyCar Series, they will go to Birmingham, Alabama for the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama on April 23rd. So that'll do it for us today. I hope you guys enjoyed the new, just straight through show. And with that, I will see you all tomorrow.